ay mga problem or let's say mga inconsistencies nga na-check ninyo sa CodeCham, like pag-verify ba ninyo okay siya, then when you got the final grade for your activities niya nay nanggawas nga problema nga dili mao during the test, okay, I would like to get a record of all the names, okay, nga nagka-problema, and then please be specific about the problem, okay, unsa siya nga problem o unsa mga test cases baron nga inyuhang nabantayan, okay. Kaya ako siyang i-manually check kay murag na ay uban sa yung activities nga nga na nga instances, so I have to manually check it, okay. So i-submit lang ni Miss Igot ang inyong concern para ma-summarize nato ang problem na na-encounter ninyo for this class. Okay. Sige, so medyo taas-taas inyong bakasyon last week, no? Okay, matawag ba tong bakasyon? Midterm week? Lingaw kayo? Okay? So hopefully, okay, you're still thinking na magpadayon sa pagiging COME? Ha? Lingo-lingo naman si Miss Igot. Okay? So imagine guys, base sa curriculum sa first year, I think naara mo yung mga duha ka buokwan, duha ka buok major subjects. Programming o kani ato ang computer engineering as a discipline. So medyo wala kayo i-challenge kay murag blah blah ra mo gud siya. Okay? It's more of kwan lang jud, murag essay type. Okay? So wait lang, don't worry. More major subject is to come. Igabot ninyo sa third year. Ug agto mo mabuhong og mga major subjects igabot sa third year kay agto gatapok. Okay? So first year, second year, murag makaingon mo chill-chill lang sa nga stage. Okay? So ikabot ninyong third year, anha namang gawas ang inyong pagka-engineer. Okay? And that is where your best will come out. Okay, ingon man daw nila. Okay, for an engineer, you work best under pressure. So, in short, ika-third year na another ang pressure. Okay, so anyway, mao man dyan yung kinabuhi basta musod kag engineering. Okay, so let's start with our discussion. Okay, our topic for today will be all about repetition. Okay, so previous topic, we have discussed one of the control flow, okay, which is the repetition, and prior to that, taapod tay sequential. Okay, so the third one, we have the repetition. So in some books, it might be labeled as iterative statements or kaning gitawag nato nga loops. Okay, wherein it gives our program the ability to perform repetitive functions. Okay. So makompleto na jud ni nato ang ato ang implementation sa ato ang flowchart. Okay? So far sa previous topic, ang implementation sa ato ang flowchart is limited raman under sa selection. So right now we will able to learn how to implement kaning gitawag nato nga loops sa ato ang flowchart. Og kadugay ba niya? There it is. So sige na lang na blah blah naman na siya. So let's move forward. Okay, so giving you an overview about the previous topic about control flow. Okay, so three basic structures for the control flow again based ato ang nagian na humanata og sequential, which is just a top to bottom approach na way of programming. And we have the selection or conditionals, which allows your code to branch out or make decisions. Okay? So, dili na kay nga na ka-linear ang dagan sa tong program. And next, we have the repetition. So, there is a repetition na diri guys, ano ninyo ma-experience ang power jud sa programming language. Okay? So, usually when you talk about automation, okay, it basically solves those problem of repetitive task. Okay? So, naadira ang matawag natong si term na niya. one of the greatest features of any programming language, the ability to perform repetitive tasks. Okay? So when we talk about repetition, okay, there will be 3 loops statements ngayon yung ma-encounter. Okay? So one of those is si while, si do while, and si for loop. Okay? So why do we need to learn about loops? So imagine guys, if we have this problem, okay? Like if you are tasked, okay, to create a program that would allow you to input 10 integers, okay? And you will be getting the sum of all the inputted integers, okay? How would you do that? So I think without the knowledge of the so-called loops, ang implementation lang jud ninyo ani would be to make use of scanf 10 times. Di ba? Scanf ka 10 times. Okay? 10 integers man. Okay? And with every scanf, of course, kailangan man nimo i-store ang data nga imuhang gibasa. So that means you will be creating 10 variables for that. Okay? So again, medyo tedious kayo siya ang process. Okay? And that is how we are to make use of loops. Okay? To solve problem like this nga naay daghang repetition, pabalik-balik na operation. Okay, if you just do this manually, imagine, maybe dali ra ni siya kay you can just simply say scanf 10 times, cut and paste, di ba? Niya sa variable name nimo moingon lang kag usab na siya. Input 1, input 2, input 3, input 4 until input 10. But of course, okay ra na siya kung 10. But what about if moabot na og 100 inputs or 1,000 inputs? Di ba? Or 10,000 inputs. Di na pod practical nga magsige kag scanf, cut and paste, cut and paste. Okay? So, to solve that problem, we need to know about these so-called loops. Okay? So basically, when you talk about loops, it refers to a sequence of instruction that we will continually or repeatedly do until a certain condition is reached. So in short, when you use loops po di na mawala ang kanang gitawag nato nga conditions. Just like that in an selection statement or conditional statement. So in short, mugamit gihapon tag mga Boolean operators or kanang gitawag nato nga logical operators or pwede pod relational operators. So any operator that you can use to create a condition is applicable here in the loops. Okay? So unsa ra mo dinay concept anang loops? Okay? How do we know that when you look at a flowchart, it will be implemented with a loop? Okay? So typically, if you look at the flowchart, guys, usa sa mga timailhan nga maggamit og loop is whenever makakita ka og ing-ani nga format, okay, sa imuhang, asa naman ito akong pen? I cannot see my pen. Oops. Okay. So whenever makakita mo ani nga tawag ani makakita mo ani nga format wherein ang arrow nimo goes back, okay, to where it came from where it came from, okay, this would form a so-called loop structure. Okay, so every time nga makakita ta nga naing ani nga forma, okay, sa imong flowchart, somewhere wherein your path would go back to where it came from, okay, mo na timailhan nga applyan na nimo siya og loop. Okay, so of course nganong makaingon man ta og loop, nganong makaingon man ta nga naay repetition performed, kay again, if we just follow the flow chart, okay, this is the sequence of operations that we perform here, okay, and as what you see on the line mubalik man siya sa ibabaw again, performing that same procedure over and over. But of course, medyo kulang pa jud ni ang flowchart kay nga naman wala man nato butang og kondisyon as to kapila siya magbalik-balik or kung unsay reason nganong ibalik-balik ang loop. Okay? So, basically, again, as stated on the statement, okay, the real power of computers is in their ability to repeat an operation or a series of operation many times. Okay? Maunay ato ang i-exploit, okay, nga ability sa ato ang computer. Okay? Kaya of course, ang tao, pulanon man, di ba? Basta magbalik-balik ang buhaton, wa na. Maabtag tapol, undang dayon. But with computers, wa ra jay problema kay nga naman bisan pa nagbalik-balikon ampay ra kay na niya kay wala may bag-ong gibuhat. Okay? So very nice ni siya gamiton if let's say for example maghimo mo og program, okay, that would convert decimal numbers to binary numbers. Okay? Do you still remember that, guys? The operation of converting decimal numbers to binary numbers? Nakahinumdum pa mo ito, wala na. Okay? So, unsa to siya ma-process that would perform repetition. Okay? So, ato-ato ang gigamit nga repeated division. Okay? Nga tawagan na steps. So, with computers, that can be easily implemented. Okay? So, let's proceed. Now, when talking about loops, okay, dili lang na siya usa ka buok as stated here. Okay? So, when you apply loops, it usually depends on the situation that requires you to perform this repetition. Okay? So, in a loop di okay, since daghan man na siyang types of loop, some loops may use one kind of loop better than another. Okay? But of course, the thing is with those loops, every loop can be transformed into one another. So, again, as stated there, a type of loop that may be more practical to be used compared sa two others. But essentially, kaning tulo ka types of loop can be changed interchangeably. Okay? So medyo usbon lang jud nimo ang structure sa imong loop. Okay? So anyway, let's proceed jud so to the core aspects of using loops. Okay? Kinsa ba ito? Okay. So, let's look at the types of loops that you might encounter. Okay. So, when talking about loops, natay gitawag nga pre-test loops o post-test loops. Okay. So, unsa may kalahian sa pre-test o post-test aside sa spelling? So, of course, when you talk about pre-test loop from the word pre, okay, the testing before you do the loop comes before. Okay? So, mo na siya ang sa pre-test. Whereas, when you talk about post-test, okay, basically, the testing comes after performing the statement in the loop. Okay? So, thus, it is called post, ang usa, pre. Okay? So, mura sad katong pre-increment o post-increment nga ato ang nagian before. Okay? Now, let us look at some of the block diagram of how we might be able to detect, okay, the presence of loops in your program. Okay? So we have already talked about flowcharting and how loops are performed in flowcharting, okay, to do repetition nga operation. So in this example, as what you can see, this flowchart shows the pre-test loop operation. Okay? So, tawag na to siyang pre-test because as what you can see, okay, before it performs the function or the operation or other statements that needs to be performed, it first test, okay, for a condition. Okay? So if let's say the condition is true, that's the time i-perform niya ang action. And performing the action, after performing the action, it then again test for the condition if it needs to be repeated or not. Okay? So it will keep that operation, that loop, okay, until such time the condition becomes false. The moment the condition becomes false, then it exits the loop. Okay? So, maora na siya guys, ang sa pre-test operation. So, some of these statements nga makita niya nato later, ma-associate day nato siya dito sa pseudocodes nga gipangbuhat ninyo. Okay? But for some, okay, it might come in a little bit different. Okay? Nga dili siya murag directly translatable ang imong pseudocode into a program. Okay? Now, this is our post-test loop. Okay? So, in the post-test loop, as what we can see, okay, makita nato that as we enter, okay, the so-called loop, okay, gi-perform daan ang action. After performing certain action, the condition, okay, if the loop is to be performed again, okay, is being performed, and if the condition still satisfies to be true, then it performs that series of actions again. And of course, until such time, the condition becomes false. Ana na siya mo exit. Okay? So, mo na siya guys ang ato ang post-test loop. Okay? So again, gitawag siyang post-test because the checking is done after performing the body of your loop. Okay? So, let's look at the example here nga gipakita nato. Okay? So, one is pre-test, the other one is post-test. So, makita nato sa example, okay, we have a condition here, naapa by energy. If true, then do one push-up. Okay? So after doing the push-up mo, tanan na po, do you still have energy? If true, then do one push-up again. Okay? So until such time that you run out of energy, if you run out of energy, then you stop doing the push-ups. Okay? So mo na siya sa pre-test. Here, sa post-test, as what we can see, nag-push up kadaan before gi-check ang energy. Naa pa by energy? If true, then perform na pod og push-up. After performing the push-up, check na pod ang energy kung naa pa. Kung wala na, then exit ka sa loop. Okay? Now, if we try to compare these two types of loop, guys, unsay ma-notice ninyo? Unsay mga noticeable difference that you might that you have noticed from this flowchart of ours? Okay? Unsay ikasulti nimo or ninyo with regards to you doing the push-up? Okay? Hello? Anybody? Hello, hello. You still hear me, guys?
Yes, sir.
So unsay ato ang ikasulti about ana? Okay. Unsa may nabantayan ninyo base sa block diagram? Okay.
Kana nga diagram, sir.
Yes.
Yung kuan, sir, ganang sa pretest nga loob, sir. Kanang tanon pa una, sir, napakay energy usa ka mga push up, sir, nga sa pikas kay mo push up sa ka, sir, usa kung tanon ka sa nga napakay energy, sir.
Okay, mo na yung nabantayan. Okay, so let's say if I have this, okay. Okay, so we have here two characters, okay, who are running. Okay, so when you run, let's say na kay robot baron, basically what you do is you do some testing, di ba, before you take a step. Okay, so imagine ang action nato nga gi-perform is to take a step. Okay, take a step. Then for the condition, okay, so probably if there's a road, okay, that's the condition. If there's a road, then you do a step. Then you check again. If there's a road, you do a step. Kung magtan-out aning duha, which do you think is the one performing the post-test and the pre-test? Okay. Can you identify kung kinsay gabuhat sa post-test o sa pre-test? Okay. Anyone? Okay. So again, imagine ang action di perform is take a step. Okay? Nya ang ato ang condition is check if there's a road. Okay? So asa aning duha ka ang gagamit og post-test og pre-test. Okay?
Kwan, sir. Ang Roadrunner kay kwan, sir. Kanang kwan siya pre-test, then ang Coyote kay kwan post-test.
Okay. Do you agree with that, guys? Si
Yes.
Coyote is post-test,
Yes, sir.
while si Roadrunner is pre-test. Okay? So, nganong matawag man natong naka-post-test si Coyote? Okay? So, because Coyotes did a step before checking, okay, where to take the step. Okay? So, mo na kung magtan-out ta sa image, okay, take siya step daan, then pag-check niya, uy, there's no more road. Okay? So, mo nang nahitabo sa kaninga scenario with the Coyote. Okay? So, giuna niya perform ang action daan before doing the check. Whereas, basically, for the Roadrunner character, okay, wa siya mahagbong sa pangpang kay before it takes a step, it verifies, okay, kung naa ba siya'y katumban or naa ba'y road na matumban. Okay? So again, that's one example, guys, okay, nga pwede buhaton sa inyong character sa mga games. Okay? So na, typical example for what pre-test and post-test are. Magsugod na ang game sa ML. Unsa day lahang game? Valorant. Hala.
Kami, sir, hapon ba mi, sir? Gasapon
Valorant
sa-
ug ML ang sa SSD, sir.
Pero kana ilang activity ba na nanghid sila ana sa school, no?
Wala
Mga-
may demo nga gi-post, sir.
Nga mo absent ang mga estudyante.
Kami, sir, hapon ba mi, sir? na nagsabot ni sa kontra.
Kinsay nag-set sa schedule? Ang kwanra, kamo ray gipapilig schedule dito or gi-draw by lots mo?
Kuan sir kanang ga-bracket sila sir niya. Niya na ramon to ang tighandol sir nga. Sa tuig nga. Nga sabot man daw sa imong kontra nga kanus amo duha available. Amot nang ka sa Valorant sir. ML man to akong na kuan man sa GC.
Mao ba? Sige lang, basta apas lang yung discussion ha. So anyway, padayon lang ta.
Basta mabildi daw, may nusa ni sir.
Lagi, basta mapilde niya. Kung madaog gani, basta dili mo hatag balato, may nusan sad nato. So dapat madaog jud niya mo hatag og balato guys no. Okay? So anyway, padayon ra niya ta. So, one noticeable difference if we try to compare pre-test and post-test types of loop is that when you talk about pre-test, there's an instance or there's a possibility that your statements inside the loop will never be executed. Okay? Whereas when you talk about post-test, okay, mandatory na jud na siya nga at least once ma-execute jud ang statement sa imong loop. Okay? Because of the nature of how the loops are being structured. Okay? So, as to the type of loop nga gamiton, when to use pre-test and post-test, it all boils down jud to the problem nga imuhang ganahan isolve. Okay? So, if sa problem nga imuhang isolve requires you to at least have one operation performed within the loop, okay, then you use post-test. But if okay ra gani nga no operation may be performed, then you do the pre-test. Okay? So, mo na ang major difference between the post-test and pre-test type of loop. Okay, so when you are working with loops, okay, aside from the so-called testing or kanang sa condition nga part sa loop, okay, there are also two things that you need to take note of. Okay, kanang gitawag nato nga initialization and updating. Okay? So, in a loop, ang mabalik-balik ug perform ana niya would be ang testing ug updating. Ug kaning gitawag nato nga initialization will only be done once. Okay? So, makita nato diri guys sa atong flowchart nga ang updating ug test, okay, depende sa number of repetitions that you need to do. That updating and test will be done multiple times. Okay? Whereas, when you talk about initialization, kas-ara jud na siya i-perform ang kanang gitawag nato nga initialization. And usually, initialization comes before the loop operation. Okay? So, let's look onto ways of determining, okay, when to use a loop. Okay. Now, when you try to make use of a loop, okay, the conditions may vary. Okay. So, some conditions could probably refer to as event-controlled loops, and dapat tayo gitawag nga counter-controlled loops. Okay? So, unsa man ang counter-controlled loops? Usually, when you say counter-controlled loops, okay, naano na siya murag gitawag nato nga variable nga counter nga gidefine ni mudaan kung kapila siya balik-balikon. Okay? So usually when you talk about counter-controlled loops, na kay idea as to how many times an operation is to be performed. Okay? Naputay gitawag nga event-controlled loops. Unsa man sining event-controlled loops? Basically, it could be nga naay certain conditions that needs to be met before you stop performing, okay, that repetitive operation. Okay? So, example, okay? Kanang mag-type ka og character, okay? Then dili siya mo exit sa loop until, let's say for example, you press the character X. Okay? So pwede na nato mabutang under sa event controlled loops. Yeah, when you talk about counter controlled loops, let's say for example, you need to input katong base sa to ang previous nga example ganina, you need to input 5 numbers baron. Okay? So naa kay variable dira that would hold how many times naka-perform sa imong input. Okay? So again, more na siya ang difference, okay, between event controlled loop and count. Usually when you use count, it involves integers. Okay? Sa condition, it could also involve integers, and it might also include characters po. Okay? So, comparison lang between the two. Okay? When you do initialization, how many times will you initialize your loop? 1 time. Okay? How about the number of tests performed by the loop? Okay? So, since sa pre-test, okay, you will be performing the loop n plus 1 times. Okay? Whereas when you talk about post-test loop, okay, it will be performed n times. So when you say n times, guys, it refers to a variable performing how many times the loop is to be performed. Okay? Yeah, action executed, of course, n times. Okay, so makita nato when you do pre-test, mas daghan siyang testing mabuhat compared sa post-test. Okay, again, mag-una makag-test daan. Okay? So, how about the updating sa loop? So, n times rapod gihapon. Okay? Minimum iteration, as what we can see, for post-test is 1, sa pre-test is 0. Because when you talk about pre-test, there's a possibility manggod nga dili ma-execute ang imong statement kung i-test pa lang niya daan, mo false na. Okay? So, to give us a summary, okay, when you are designing a loop, okay, these are the following components that needs to be in a loop statement. Okay? Ang initialization, which is only done once. The testing, okay, which would be performed based on the condition na imuhang gi-create kung how many times nato siya i-perform. And we also have your updating. Now, the body, as what we can see, wala butangi og asterisk, okay, because it could be optional. Okay? So, optional ang gibutang dire. Kay pwede man gud mag-create kag loop nga wala ray sulod. Okay? So, we will be demonstrating that later. Ngano mag-create man kag loop nga walay sulod. Okay? So, there are actually cases wherein you will be doing that also. Okay. So, let's now look on to the 3 types of loop nga ato ang ma-encounter in C programming. Okay? So, natay gitawag nga while loop, for loop, and the do while loop. Okay, so naana siya indicator dira. Okay? That when you perform the so-called while and the for loop, it will be performing pre-test. Okay? Pre-testing. Whereas when you talk about the do while loop, it will be performing post-testing. Okay? So, let's start with the do while lang sa. Okay? So, as stated here, this type of loop executes a block of code as long as the specified condition is true. Okay? So, it is post-check because it checks the controlling condition after the code is executed. So, blah blah kayo no, kapoy kigbasa. Diretso na lang ta diri sa syntax niya. What does a do while statement looks like? Okay? Now, as what we can see here, okay, these are the keywords that you need to memorize. Okay? So, ang syntax goes like this. You have the keyword do, and of course, you have here your statement block. Okay? So, when you talk about the statement block, it refers to the procedures or statements that you need to repeatedly perform. Okay? And of course, the keyword while. And then, the condition. But, again, don't forget to put a semicolon after that. Okay? So, mandatory si semicolon for this type of statement, kaning si do while. So, after the while, then the condition, you need to always put a semicolon. Okay? Now, if we look at the syntax, asa man dira ang update ug ang initialization. So, di na to makita diri sa syntax, guys. Because ang initialization ug update manggod is pwede ibutang bisag asa sa user. Okay? Now, let's look at the example here. Okay? So, makita na to C is equal to 1. That will serve as the initialization. Okay? So, natay initial condition for what the value of C is. And then, we have here printf, hello world. Okay? So, i-print na niya sa screen. Then, kaning si C++, this will serve as our update. Okay? And of course, we have here C less than equal to 5. That is your condition. Okay? So, while this condition is true, okay, it will keep on printing the word hello world. Okay? So, if I run this, guys, kapila na nato makit-an si hello world sa screen. Okay. What do you think? Kapila na to makit-an si hello world. Okay? So, pwede na nimo i-trace. Given that C is 1, display si hello world. Okay? Ikabot diri, C becomes 2. Is 2 less than or equal to 5? Yes. So, print na po hello world. Then, update na po. This becomes 3. Is 3 less than or equal to 5? Yes. So, display na po hello world. This now here becomes 4. Is 4 less than or equal to 5? Yes. So, print na po. Okay. So, si 4 mahimo ng 5. Is C less than or equal to 5? Yes. So, print na po. Ikabot niyag 6. Kung sa'yo mahitabo. 6 is less than or equal to 5? False. So, it exits. So, makita na to, ang hello world will be displayed 5 times. So, ingana lang na guys, ang pag-trace sa loop. Okay? So that's how we use the do while statement. Okay? So very important ang update. Okay? Nakita ninyo ang relevance update. What do you think will happen if wala na si update, guys?
Di mahuman, sir.
Okay? Dili mahuman. Okay? Kaya nga nung di man mahuman because ang kondisyon nimo di man mausab. Okay? So kung di mausab ang kondisyon dire, this will always be evaluated as true. And if true na siya, so magsige og print og hello world. So that's why sa imuhang loop, there must always be an update to the variable nga gigamit nimo for your test condition. Okay? So mo nay bantayanan when you are working with loops. Okay? So next we have the while statement. Okay? So as stated here, the while statement is like the do while. Okay? Except that this will execute the block of codes if the given condition is true. Okay? Kay if igsugod pa lang, the condition is false, there's that possibility jud nga di jud ma-execute ang atoang statements. Okay? Because again, it's performing pre-checking. Okay? So, as stated, we use the while loop when we do not know exactly how many times we need to execute repeating the block of code. Okay? So that's actually true with the do while side. Okay? So if you also don't know when to stop performing the operation, okay, you could also use do while. But the question is, unsa na to pagpili as to kinsay gamiton, si do while or si while ra ba? So it depends on the condition, like for instance, kailangan bang at least once ma-perform ang operation or pwede ra possibly dili i-perform ang operation. Okay? So of course, when you say at least once, automatic na yun, gamit og do while. But if ang condition states that pwede dili i-perform ang operation, then you'd make use of while statement. Okay? So unsa man siya itsura ning while statement? So as what we can see, guys, pari-pareha ra jud na siya do while. Ang testing lang nimo is done before. Okay? Before sa statement block. Now, as you can see here, walay semicolon. Okay? So how do you end a while statement? A while statement is ended by your closing curly bracket. Okay? Or that statement block. So dili required diri nga magbutang ka og semicolon. Okay? Because just like unsa na siya katong sa if statement nga gigamit nato before, if else, in loops kanang curly brackets are actually optional. If you are to perform a single statement lang, pwede ra jud na siya walay statement block. But then again, okay, just like our experience with if statement, di ba? Para malihayan ang kanang gitawag nato nga dangling nga conditions, ato adyong ibutang bisag usara na ka statement, always yun na siya ibutang in a statement block. Okay? If you're using if or if you're using loops like while or do while. Okay? So, again, looking at the same example as what we can see here, guys. Okay? C1 again will serve as the initialization. The while statement here holds the condition for testing. And of course, inside the body comes the update. Okay? So, importante jud na siya. Ibutang nimo within the statement block ang update. Okay? Pwede ba ibutang ang ang update sa gawas? Of course, dili. Okay? Kaya while performing the loop, kinsa may mo change sa value ni C. Okay? So again, to test this one, simple ra pud kay ang testing ani guys. Okay? We have the initialization, C is 1, okay? And i-check dayon si C diri if it is less than or equal to 5. So since 1 is less than or equal is less than 5, then therefore hello world will be displayed once. Igabot diri sa update, it now becomes 2. Then checking again, since true pa man, this will be again displayed on the screen. And this will be updated to 3. Then check again, 3 is less than 5. Then print again. Then as what we can see here, update nahimo na sang 4. Then i-check na pod niya masud pa mas condition. This will again be printed. Igabot niya 5 as what you can see. Masud na siya sa condition nga C is equal to 5. Then therefore this will be printed again. Ikabot dere, mahimo na siyang 6. Is 6 less than or equal to 5? False naman na siya. Then it goes out of the loop. So makita nato dere guys, it indeed is being performed 5 times si hello world. Okay? So napo dere ang katong comparison nato, okay? Wherein ang statement is performed n times ug ang update is also performed n times. Okay? Nya, ang condition is performed n plus 1 time. Okay? So, na hinumduman to ninyo katong comparison nato dire. Okay? So, with pretest, it will be testing the condition n plus 1 times. Okay? So usually ang n plus 1 times ang 1 would be ang last nga test nga imong buhaton as you go out of the loop. Okay? So or na siya guys, si while ug si do while. Okay? So difference between pre-testing and post-testing. Okay? So the third type of loop that we have is the for loop. Okay? So sa for loop, as what we can see here, okay, it is defined as a repetition control structure that allows you to efficiently write a loop that needs to be executed in a specific number of times. Okay? So as what I have told you earlier, this is an example of a counter controlled loop. Okay? Kung aware na ka of how many times nimo i-perform ang loop, okay? Nindot gamiton dira si for loop. Okay? Ug ngano man. Let's look at the syntax of a for loop. Okay? When you use a for loop, in a way, mura siya kanang gitawag nato nga while statement. Okay? Na diri ang ato ang for, then the condition, then the statement block. Okay? However, unlike the while statement that only has a single operand, okay, on its open-close parenthesis, ang for loop requires 3 operands. 1 for the initialization, 1 for the condition, and 1 for your update. Okay? And those are separated by commas. Okay. So as what we can see here, okay, the initialization for the loop is performed only once, okay? Despite the fact nga gibutang nato siya inside this open close parenthesis. Okay? So mo ni kalahian niya guys. Okay, ang nakanindot sa for loop manggod, since you are now aware of how many times you need to perform a loop, okay? Makita nimo sa usa ka statement, okay, kung asa siya nag-start and what makes the loop perform the operation and unsay mga update gipang perform sa variable gigamit for the condition. Unlike sa while ug do while, naa kay flexibility as to where you could put your initialization on the code. Okay? But of course, by practice, ang initialization is always placed right before the while or the do while nga statement. Ug ang update is placed anywhere between the statement blocks. Okay? But here, for the for loop, ang update na to makita dayon nato at a glance. Okay? So, if we look here, maora ni ang gi-perform sa ato ang kwan guys, sa ato ang tawag for loop. Okay? So, as what we can see, okay, pwede ra gani ni siya ipariha nato atong sa previous example nga mo display 5 times. And for us to do that, okay, kung ganahan ka 5 times ra siya ibalik, usbon lang nimo dire ang condition until 5 is less than or equal to 5. Then, ang update, as you can see, it is just placed here. Makita ra jud nimo sa imong for nga statement. Okay? In a single line. Okay? So, kung baliko na to, initialization, okay? Then, check for the condition. Kung mo true gani siya, then it performs this operation, the statement block. After performing the statement block, the update then is triggered. After the update, it then checks for the condition. Okay? So, mao na siya ang gibuhat, guys, when you use for loop. Okay? Unlike sa while statement o sa do while wherein you are fully aware of where and when the update is performed, okay? There is a for loop, sometimes for starters, it is hard for them to identify kanus aman mahitabo ang initialization, condition, o incrementation. Okay? Kay di man gud nimo makita diretso from the code. Okay? However, if you're using for loop, basically this is the flow chart being followed by this type of loop statement. Okay? Ang condition, ang initialization as shown on the diagram is only done once. Okay? Even though part siya sa statement nga makita ninyo. Okay? Then, before it performs the content of the loop, as you can see, it performs checking. So, as what we have stated kanina, the for loop is an example of a pre-test loop. Okay? So, knowing that beforehand, kabauta nga, before i-perform ang body, checking is done actually. Okay? For the condition. So if the condition is true, then that's the time i-perform ang statement. And after the statement, as you can see, wala kay nakita ang update dire. Pero since ang update na parameter is already placed within the open-close parenthesis, it's actually murag automatic na siya, gi-predefine na siya that update will be done after performing the body. Okay? So, based on our example, we have just seen, okay, three different ways of performing loops, okay, 5 times. Okay? So, using the do while, the while, and the for statement. Okay? So, simple ra kayo. Okay? Igo ra gud ta mag pa-display o hello world or number baron sa screen. Okay? So, let's look at the initialization inside the loop in C. Okay? And this is applicable for loops. Okay? Pwede sa ay maka-perform og multiple initialization inside the loop. Despite us knowing na there are supposed to be 3 parameters ang sulod niya. Okay? However, those parameters nga tulo ka buok is again just referring to the update part, okay? The initialization part and the testing part. Okay? So sa testing part niya, as you can see here guys, okay, it's just basically a logical operator nga ato ang gigamit with relational operator. Base sa ato ang knowledge with operators, we know that the relational operators are actually evaluated first before the logical operator. Okay? So if naa ganing ani nga mga operation, again applicable gyapon tong nakita nato or nahibaw-an nato before, that when you use ampersand, it also performs short circuit evaluation. The moment nga mo false gani ni siya, then no need nga mo evaluate pa sa next nga operand. But if ever gani this is true, pwede pa ni i-check if j indeed is less than 10. So kung mo 1 ni siya, then ana pa na nato i-evaluate ang ato ang logical operator nga ampersand. Okay? So okay. So when you are working with loops, take note, when you talk about kaning indefinite loop, that means wa jud tay idea as to how many times i-perform ang loop. Okay? Kay mag-agad man na siya sa event or conditions nga maka-trigger niya to exit the loop. Naputay gitawag nga definite loop, which is usually associated with katong gitawag nato nga counter controlled loops nga ma-define sa user as to how many times i-perform ang loop based on integer values. Okay? So infinite loops. Unsa man sabing infinite loops? Okay? Sana all. Okay? So when you say infinite, no ending. So you could actually create a loop that doesn't end. Okay? So how do we create a loop that doesn't end? So for for statement, if you want to create a loop that doesn't end, all you need to do is simply leave the parameters blank for the for statement. So meaning di ka magbutag initialization, di ka magbutag condition, di ka magbutang og update. And that would be creating an endless loop. For while and do while, what you can do is pwede ra ka mo butang og 1. Okay? Nganong 1 man? Okay? Do you still remember unsay pasabot sa 1 sa condition?
True.
Okay. 1 simply is equivalent to true, or any non-zero value is equal to true. So, mura ra kag nagsulti dira nga while true. Okay? Or do while true. Okay? So, since di man na siya mausab, kay dili man variable, it will generate an infinite loop. Okay? So, you might be asking, anong kailangan na tog infinite loop? Okay? If you have an infinite loop, usually ang tendency ana guys, this is what makes your program unsa na siya kanang gitawag nato nga naghang ba. Kay wa na siya i-perform nga laing operation, pabalik-balik na lang. Okay? But actually in gitawag nato nga embedded system, that is actually required. Okay? Nga magbalik-balik og perform og certain operation. Okay? So useful kayo na siya when you move on later sa embedded system, kanang mogamit na mo og kanang Arduino or microcontrollers. So anyway, we'll have more examples later. Okay? So let's look at this example. Okay? Counter is equal to 0 while counter is less than or equal to 10. Counter minus minus. Okay? If we look at the condition and if we look at the initialization and update, would this create an infinite loop?
Dili, sir.
Okay, unsa to?
Dili, sir.
Dili siya mo create og infinite loop. Okay? Sige, natay usa. How about the rest? Unsay opinion sa uban? Would this create an infinite loop? So, nay usa, ningon, dili na siya mo create og infinite loop. How about the rest? Okay? So, if we try to trace 0, counter is less than or equal to 10, minus minus. Kung 0, minusan nimo, man-negative, di ba guys? And what is car counter? Take note, wa man tay modifier gigamit nga unsigned. So that means this character counter would actually support negative numbers. Okay? Now, if we look at this logically, okay, if you keep on subtracting a negative value, okay, to a number, di ba magkagamay ang numero? Okay? Would it reach a condition wherein ma-false?
No, sir.
Dili, sir.
Dili. Okay? O unsa maninggi message ni Sumalinog? Nganong nagsorry man ka Sumalinog?
Infinite.
Ha? Unsa to? Unsa to?
Infinite ba sir?
Oh, ma-infinite day siya. Okay? How about ang uban? Do you still hold
Infinite, sir.
your ground ga infinite? Okay? What do you think, guys?
Infinite, sir.
Yes.
Infinite? Ah, sige. Who says this loop will perform an infinite loop? Raise your hand. Oh, what na yung mo raise? Again, those who says this will be creating an infinite loop, raise your hand. Okay, so nay usa, nay duha, nay tulo. Okay. Sige. What I want you to do right now is create a program, okay, using these conditions or this format for the for loop. Then probably gamit lang kwan diri guys, a simple printf lang. Okay? A simple printf nga mo display og hello. Okay? So hello/n lang siguro. Okay? Nya tanawag muundang ba or dili. Sige, I'll give you 3 minutes to do that. So you can try doing it in CodeChamp. Sige, nya manawag ko og usa to share to the class their screen. Okay? Kung dili gani makapa-show sa screen, ang ako ang tawagon later, -5 sa midterm exam. Okay, sige. So I'll give you one lang. Okay? 5 minutes. Okay? To make use of this code. Oh, kinsa na nakahuman? Okay. So igtawag na po ha after 5 minutes kung dili gyud ka present sa kaninga code minus na tug 5 sa midterm exam. Di na lang ta maghuwat og 5 minutes. Yes, Mr. Canonigo, you can share your screen.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay. So, asa naman to? Okay, there it is. Sige, padagan na Mr. Canonigo. O ayaw... Pwede ra, ibutang lang ng %D. Okay? O, kana lang para makita na to. Okay? So, as what we can see there guys, okay, nagsigi og display, okay, sa hello world. But as what we can see there, infinite ba siya?
Dili, sir.
Dili,
no?
sir.
Dili.
Terminate sa dako.
As what you can see, bitaw, nung anong terminate man? Nga kung mag-minus ka sa 0, it becomes a negative number. But kung magsige kag minus, magka-negative-negative, di ba? It will never go to a value that is greater than 10. But tanawa diri guys sa kinalasan. What causes it to exit? Pilay last value ni hello.
126, sir.
Oh. Yeah, unsam ni siya nabugo ang ato ang computer nga kung minusan og 1 maningod no 126. No? Bitaw bugo maning computer sir. Nga ang negative 128 minusan nimo 1 negative 129 unta ni siya. Okay? So what happened? Okay? What happened there?
Kuan sir, murag limit sa integer. 128.
Ni wrap around ang kuan, sir. Kaya ang gamay ra mag byte sa car.
Okay, so take note, car is only represented with 1 byte. Okay? So, ang range sa to ang tawagan ang range sa to ang character is only up to unsa ganito? Positive 127 to negative 128. Okay? So, doing the subtraction operation, kung maabot na kag negative 128, minusan pa ganay na nimo, it performs a wrap around. Okay? So, in short, mura ba gaduwa mo og kwan guys, kana bang tres ba? Nga mupaso ang imuhang score. So, take note, when you do subtraction, okay, especially with variables, you need to check the storage. Okay? You need to check the limit of your variable nga gigamit. Kung ganahan ka medyo mas taas-taas pa na siya nga i-perform ang operation, then you choose a bigger data type. Since ang ato ang example diri character man, makita sa jud nato nga dili siya ingana kadaghan nga operation ang i-perform. Okay? Oh, di ba? Kabantay mo, dugay pa kay no, kay moabot pagod na siya pila to, 2 million. Okay, that's 4 byte man. Okay? So dugay-dugay pa jud na siya. Okay? Pero again, dili siya infinite guys. Kay nga naman, muabot man jud ang punto nga mo-stop siya. Kay the moment ma-reach niya ang limit sa imuhang 4 byte nga size, okay, it will become positive naman sad. Okay? So, ikapila naman ni siya. Oh, napatay 1 million to go. Okay? Medyo dugay-dugay pa jud na siya mahuman. Okay? So, the idea there again is that dili siya unlimited. Okay? So, nagets na ninyo? Again, when you're talking about storage, okay, imagine lang nga ang storage nimo in binary is something like this. Let's say, character is 8 bytes man, di ba? So, let's say for example, what if our storage is 3 bytes? So, kung 3 bytes ka, probably you will have all these possible combination for a number. Okay? So 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now take note when you're talking about numbers stored in your computer, they are stored using unsa to? 2's complement. Okay? So they have here a representation for the value of 0, value of 1, value of 2, and a value of 3. Okay? So, when the most significant bit is 1, it refers that this number is ano to? Negative. Okay? So, how will you get the actual value of this one? Okay? So, what you need to do is just simply perform 2's complement again. How do you get the 2's complement? Invert lang na nimo matag usa ka bit, then plus 1. So again, this is 3 plus 1. So that means this is negative 4. Kung kani, again, invert nimo, this becomes 0, 1, 0 plus 1. So this becomes negative 3. So kani, this is negative 2. And this is negative 1. Okay? So, mauna siya guys. Okay? So, take note, kung magsigi kag minus sa imuhang value, okay? Take note, sa binary, eventually, tanang negative nimo are represented. What happens is that mulabang siya sa positive na range. Okay? So, once mabot niya ang limit, sa imuhang negative, positive, okay, or sa negative limit, labang na siya dito sa positive na range. Okay, so that is what happened here. Sa sige kag minus, pag abot nimo sa maximum range sa negative number, nilabang siya sa positive number. Okay, so this doesn't actually create an infinite loop. Okay, so magbantay-bantay day mo ana sa inyong kondisyon. Okay? Okay, when you look at the condition jud, okay? Makaingon jud tag infinite siya, di ba? Kay kung magsigi kag minus man gud sa number, kabaw ka nga it will become negative, which is kabaw ta nga ang value would always be less than 10. But we have failed to include, okay, in our analysis that the variable that represents the counter has its limitation. Okay? And that limitation is the storage. Okay? So, mo nang di na siya maka-create og infinite loop. Okay? Now, let's look at other keywords used in C that might be of use to us when we are using loops. Okay? We have two keywords nga typically gamiton pod with loops, and these are the break and the continue nga keyword. Okay? So, let's move on to the keyword break lang sa unsa man ni gamit aning break. Okay, so a stated break statement is used mainly in the switch statement it is also useful for immediate stopping a loop. So in the example here, okay, as what we can see, we have a condition while the num is greater than 0. Okay? Now, inside, naatay num minus minus. Okay? Nya, naatay initialization for num which is equal to 5. Okay? So, supposed to be, okay, kung wala ni siya nga condition, okay, magsige ra ni siya og minus minus until ma-reach ta og 0. Okay? Ikaabot na tog 0, mo exit na sa loop. But we could actually make the loop stop before this condition is met. Okay? And the condition that we have added here to make it stop is when the num value is equal to 3. Okay? So the moment nga ang num value equal to 3 na gani, okay, as what you can see here, it enters this conditional statement and execute the keyword break. The keyword break would actually allow you to exit any loop. Okay? Now, what if there's a loop within a loop? Take note, the break will always look for the closest loop kung asa siya nabilong. Ug kana ra nga loop ang iyahang gawsan. Okay? So, do you still remember asa gigamit si break, guys? Aside from loops, asa pa nato nagamit si break? Okay, so we have used break also together with switch statements. Okay? So, gigamit nato si break para igsulod nato sa case we could immediately get out of the switch statement without performing that so-called overflow, okay, sa other case statements. Okay? So, mora po da si break dere ang ihang operation. Okay? We also have continue. Okay? Unsa man sad ning continue. Okay? As stated, the continue keyword will allow you to skip to the next iteration but remains inside the loop. Okay? Mao na ang continue. Let's look at the example code. How continue is being used. So again, we have here the initialization, the condition, and the update. Okay? So in some books, guys, you might be seeing there nga increment ang ibutang. But I think ang mas appropriate na keyword is update. Kay not all the time you always say plus plus. Okay? Not all the time you can say minus minus. Okay? Probably for some condition you can even use multiplication or plus 2, plus 5 as long as mausab ang variable. Mo nang mas maayo nga instead nga moingon kag increment, you say update because you can update the variable anywhere any way you like it. Be it gi-increment nimo, gi-decrement, gi-multiply or gi-square, okay, that still is an update that could change the value of the variable itself. Okay, so anyway, looking at the example again, starting at 7, your variable will change its value with a value less than 1. Then you do the checking. Then, after doing the checking, i-check nimo kung equal to 5 ba. Kung equal to 5, it continues and it is possible to skip this. Okay? Now, kung ato ang i-trace, okay, given that NB is equal to 7, so while NB is greater than 0, it performs minus minus. So mo ni atong nakita diri minus minus, so si 7 mahimong 6. So is 6 equal to 5? No. So therefore display ang